Probably this is my first experience in life which triggered the curiosity in occult and supernatural powers. I was just 12 years old then when my uncle had taken me to Sonamukhi, Bankura, where he was studying law. Sonamukhi is an important village in the district of Bankura in West Bengal, and it's extremely hot and humid during summers. He had rented a house in Bankura where he had his law books and all his belongings. My days passed climbing trees and breaking fruits, fishing in the pond, playing marbles in the courtyard and flying kites. There was this strange maid who cooked for us. She had grey hair and chickenpox marks on her face. She never spoke much. She just nodded whatever was told to her. She came into the house early parts of the morning each day to do her work and even left early. Every day when she left, I noticed that she walked up to the pond and stood there for about 2.5 hours talking to somebody. But there was no one next to the pond. She just spoke to herself. Villagers and passerbys knew this everyday event. They considered her to be little mad or insane. I got curious about this and one day followed her to the pond. I saw her talking to her reflection, but I couldn't hear what she was saying properly. Next day I followed her again, this time a little closer, but hid myself behind one tree. She was looking at the pond and speaking in Bengali saying, I'm coming, I will come fast. But you have to understand that I have got grandchildren to see to, I have got work pending at home. But after I finish all that, I will come to you as fast as I can. It was so natural that I thought she was actually speaking to some real person. Now I had a new pastime, following her every day to the pond and watching her speak to her own reflection. A few days passed like this. One fine day she didn't turn up for work. I got up and went outside to see a huge crowd gathered all around the pond. I asked my uncle what happened. He said that lady who used to work for us has committed suicide last night. He said the woman tied a brass heavy bucket filled with stones onto her neck and jumped into the pond so that she cannot float up. The villagers noticed a sari floating on the pond, and that is how they figured out. Expert swimmers from the village dived into the pond and got her body out. I was scared. When I saw a body, I felt like someone speak to me. I ran inside the house. The police came and took her body away. Later that day, her body was cremated at the local burning ground. The following day, her husband came to our house to meet with my uncle, asking him for some help. He was collecting money from all the villagers to call a person from the nearby village who could call spirits back into the earth. He wanted to do so because he wanted to find out the reason for his wife's death. My uncle agreed to help him only if he could be a part of that ritual. My uncle too had a lot of interest with powers which was beyond the physical. That night I asked my uncle if I could join him. After a lot of coaxing, he finally agreed. The following night, we went to his hut. It was a small mud hut with thatched roof. There was a total of 5 people who was present there. Her husband, her daughter, my uncle, myself and the tantric. The tantric told us to sit in a circle. There was a small lantern with very dim light which was hanging from the ceiling. He took out a small 3-legged wooden table and placed it at the center of the room. Then he took out chalk powder and spread it all across the floor. He said there are 2 ways of doing this. One, any one of us can become the medium where her spirit would come inside that person. The tantric would ask him or her the questions and he or she would answer in her language. Or he would call the spirit in the table and the table would write on the floor where the chalk was spread. Everyone was silent. I was very scared. Then he told us to close our eyes and started calling the spirit. After an hour or so, the table started moving on its own. It was a very eerie experience. The room became very heavy with a certain energy which I could never imagine. The tantric asked the table, "Why did you commit suicide?" There was no response. The table was just moving. After some time, the table started writing on its own on the chalk powder spread. In Bengali, it clearly wrote that my mother used to call me every day and I had to go to my mother. And immediately after that, the window opened and banged and everything became silent. The tantric said the spirit had left. He later explained to that man that your wife was very close to her mother and her mother's spirit used to call her every day. That is the reason she committed suicide. That day I understood something, that associating with a power which is beyond the physical can lead to disastrous situations. We should leave the dead to the dead, complete the ritual, and pray for their souls to rest in peace. This was my first scary experience about evil spirits. There are many such people today in the world who call spirits to answer their questions. It is not easy for a spirit to come from a different dimension into this earth. Some call it planchet, some call it table wrapping, and there are many more names for that. If you liked this experience, please do like, share, and subscribe. See you with another story very soon.